So he didn't at any stage suggest it might be better if you didn't have the baby. You actually did consider taking your own life at one stage. Has Hunter ever met his daughter? Have you ever heard from either President Biden or the First Lady? He's now obviously on trial, accused of hiding his drug addiction to buy a gun. Is there any possibility of you appearing as a witness? Hunter ended up having a relationship after his brother died with Hallie. That was going on at the same time that you were seeing him too. Were you aware of that? What did you know about Hunter's laptop? Who are you planning to vote for? This week marks an historic moment in US judicial history, a courtroom saga that's captured the nation's attention, with one of the most politically divisive figures in America facing federal charges. It's the trial of Hunter Biden, the first child of a sitting US president to become a criminal defendant. One of the many controversies about President Biden's son in recent years was the family's failure to acknowledge their seventh grandchild until last summer. Lunden Roberts is the mother of 5-year-old Navy Joan. Her forthcoming memoir, Out of the Shadows, My Life Inside the Wild World of Hunter Biden, teases their rollercoaster relationship. She's never given a television interview before, and now she joins me exclusively. Well, Lunden Roberts, thank you very much indeed for joining me.
Well, thank you for having me.
I guess my first question is, how are you?
I'm good. Doing well. How are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, I'm only asking because you've been through, I guess, 2 phases of your life. Life before meeting Hunter Biden and life afterwards. I would imagine the life afterwards has been pretty stressful, to put it mildly, because when Joe Biden becomes president of the United States and you're bearing his grandchild that he won't even talk about, that's got to be incredibly difficult to have all that play out in the public gaze.
Yes, I think, I have a book out about coming out of the shadows, and it actually talks about those emotions and the difficultness and the rage, the heartbreak, and all the hard emotions and the good emotions that come with all of it. But yes, it's difficult to say the least.
When did you first meet Hunter?
I can't remember the exact date, but it was as it was around the time Trump was being elected as president. So it was after his father was the vice president.
And where did you meet? Do you remember?
Yes, actually, it's in the book. I talk about the night that I met him at Rosemont Seneca.
And what are your memories from that first encounter?
How meeting him, how charming he was, how intelligent I felt that he was, even though he had a demon on his back. He was obviously suffering with addiction during that time. And but I mean, he had my attention. I was intrigued by him, and that encounter was not the encounter you would think by all the news tabloids and everything that they have to say about Hunter. Actually meeting him is something different. He's not the villain that everybody portrays him to be.
Well, he clearly had serious problems with addiction, which have massively affected his life. But when you say that he's different to what people might think, explain what you mean by that. How did he come over to you?
I think that he's been very candid about, his addiction and stuff to the world and the demons that he suffered with during that time, and, the mistakes and things that he's made. But I would say he's not a bad person.
Yeah.
That the world tries to portray him, as everyone wants some villain in their story or to fit this narrative. And my book sheds light on him as a human and who he is as a person.
Well, he's had
I mean, that comes with difficult times and good times, bad choices and good choices.
Right.
Just like everybody else.
Right. And I always, try and remind people that when, he was a very small child, obviously he survived that appalling crash that killed his mother and his little baby sister. And he and Bo survived. They were very close. And then Bo gets brain cancer in his 40s and he dies. Another terrible tragedy. It's a family that's been beset by tragedy. And it's not entirely surprising that he fell off the rails and fell into addiction. I think it's happened to a lot of people who've been through the kind of stuff he's had to go through. Doesn't excuse everything, but it may go partly to explain it. How long were you actually together in a romantic sense?
I knew Hunter for, I would say over a year or two.
And that was in a proper
But
relationship?
definitely over a year, but I don't know if it's over 2.
And that was as a proper couple, or how would you categorize it?
No, I mean, on and off, it depends. You know, sometimes Hunter, during that time of his addiction and stuff, you know, he might go MIA for a month and then, you know, show up again or whatever. So I'd say it was a very on and off again.
Did you enjoy that, or did you find it weird, or was it very difficult? How would you describe that kind of relationship?
With Hunter, it's what you get kind of during that time. Like I knew that he was struggling with addiction and the inconsistency and stuff that came with that, but how I felt for him outweighed that. So I wouldn't say that it was, you know, a bad thing or a good thing, a good feeling. You know, it's something that came with him, and it's what I dealt with.
He was, by his own admission, he was taking gigantic amounts of drugs at the time. Were you aware of that side of his life?
Yes. Yes, I was aware of that.
How did that make you feel? Did you try and stop him?
There were times we talked about, you know, his addiction and would he stop and things like that. And was really good about deflecting when it came to his addiction. He didn't want to talk about it because, you know, that, I guess, talking about it makes it real. And he was one of them that would, you know, just deflect or have some witty comment to say about it. But I'll say this, he owned it the entire time. Any conversation we had about his addiction, he owned it. And he said, this is my addiction. No one caused it. And I will quit when I quit. No one can make me quit. Like, I have to do it for myself. And he was very open about that and very straightforward.
Was it weird knowing that his father was the Vice President of the United States?
It was different because Hunter's Hunter. Like, when the times I spent with Hunter, I don't spend it thinking, oh my gosh, this is the former Vice President's son and things like that. No, I spent it with Hunter. He was Hunt. To me, he wasn't someone that I looked at as this is the former Vice President's son and starstruck by it. No, not at all, because he doesn't come across that way.
Did you ever meet? Did you ever meet or talk to Joe Biden?
No.
And you still haven't?
Do what?
And you still haven't ever spoken to him?
No, I have not.
I'm going to come back to that because it's interesting, but what's the moment when you discovered you were pregnant?
What was that moment like?
Well, how long into the relationship was that?
That was the end of our relationship. So it would have been probably a little over a year.
So you discover you're pregnant, and what happens next?
I find a way to tell him, and there are things that have to be dealt with before I can actually tell him, because I had complications during the first of the pregnancy and, you know, had to go to the hospital and things. And at that point, I just had my close friends with me in D.C. because I'm also 1,500 miles away from home. I'm not in Arkansas, where I'm from. So I'm up there with my friends, and my close friends are helping take care of me. And when that all calms down, I finally find a way to tell him. Tell him there's something that we have to talk about, and I do. I tell him.
How did he react?
Shocked at first, but very supportive. In that conversation, after I told him, he said that he would be supportive in any way, emotionally, physically, financially, whatever it took. And ultimately, as a woman, it is my decision, and he will support whatever decision I make with that.
So he didn't at any stage suggest it might be better if you didn't have the baby?
No, he never came out and said that he wanted me to have an abortion or anything like that. He solely let it up to it was my choice, and he would respect that. But
you said that the revelation you were pregnant pretty much brought the relationship to an end. Why was that?
I think earlier when I was talking about like addiction and how he would deflect and like try to avoid that whole conversation, now it became not only was he dealing with addiction, he was dealing with, a child on the way. And that sort of was treated the same way. It was, avoid the situation. And he, I wouldn't say, well, I think he just, it's just like I said, he avoided the situation. And I don't think that, he was in a dark time during those days. So I think that he didn't know fully how to go forward with that because he was in such a dark place.
So you agreed to split up? Was it your initiative? Was it his? Was it a mutual decision?
I'm sorry, what was that question?
You split up, but whose decision was that to actually break up?
Oh, okay. Well, I came home to Arkansas. Him and I, in the book, it'll tell you like the exact moment when it happened. But, him and I had several other conversations after I had told him that I was pregnant. And we had several other conversations and had seen each other a few more times before I decided it wasn't over a month later, I decided to leave. And I came home to Arkansas because at that point, I was telling my family I was pregnant and they knew who the father was and the future was unknown.
Must have been a scary
the place
time
that he was in at that time. Very scary.
And pretty lonely, I would think.
Very, very. I think that that put me in a very dark place because I believe that, most women, they get pregnant and it's a joyous time. It's something to celebrate and things like that. And it was one of the loneliest times of my life. And I went through some pretty dark times emotionally and mentally during that time. And I think that this book's one of the main reasons I'm writing it is to get that out there for the women who do go through that and go through those dark times during pregnancy and stuff.
How bad did those emotions get for you? Did you ever feel it wasn't worth continuing?
Yes.
Really?
Yes, I did. And yes, this book is full of happy chapters, angry chapters, difficult chapters, and very sad. Some of it can get sad.
But you wanted to take your own life.
But these are emotions that I've had to process over the last 5-6 years. I've had to process all these emotions, and that's what's taken me so long to actually be able to tell my story. Is that healing journey that I've been on.
But you actually did consider taking your own life at one stage?
Yes.
That's a terrible thing for a young woman who's pregnant to be thinking.
Yes. But I knew, as long as I was pregnant, I wasn't going to do anything to myself because that would harm my child. So I didn't think that I would do anything to myself while I was pregnant. But I would feel that after the pregnancy, would it be better for my daughter and for Hunter and everyone else if I wasn't here? Because it seemed like a scandal and a burden is what I felt like at those times.
What was the timeline leading up to having the baby, and you have this beautiful little girl? How involved was Hunter through that process? Was he there at the birth? Was he involved with you at all?
No. When I left from D.C. to Arkansas, I believe was towards the end of March. Hunter and I didn't have any contact after that. I reached out a few times to, try to let him know that process and the progress that was being made during pregnancy. And, I reached out to let him know about Navy's birth. And no, there was nothing on the other end of that at that point.
So you have your baby and there's still no contact?
Correct.
Were you surprised at the time that he showed no interest?
Yes, in a way. I think in the back of my head, I was always hoping that I wasn't hearing from him because, he's in rehab or he was, doing what was right to get himself together. Because I feel like Hunter is one of those people that I've always saw great potential in. He's an amazing person to know. And I always hoped that demon and that addiction wouldn't just pull him down, because I saw, it had its claws just sank in him. And I always hoped that he was getting help. I think throughout the entire pregnancy, I was hoping that's what he was doing, was getting help.
The next you hear, I believe, is when Hunter sits down with the New Yorker magazine and has a 24-page story about his redemption. And Clint, your lawyer, gets a call from a reporter before the story is published. And it says that Hunter claims he met Miss Roberts, you, in DC in 2017, but the two of them did not have sex. Would you or your client like to comment? How did that make you feel?
Hurt. I can't explain, exactly how I felt at that time, because it seems like it was so long ago. But I remember, I remember the place I was when I first saw the article, and the email from my attorney, that he sent me. And it's, I can remember just reading it and just not having any words.
Because it was basically a complete denial of everything, of you,
yes.
of the daughter that you shared, even though he'd had no dealings with you since you'd had the baby. Was that the next thing you heard from him after the birth of your baby? This piece?
Was the New Yorker?
Yeah.
No, actually, after the birth of our daughter, he called one of my close friends that lived in DC, and he met up with her to discuss everything, and asked about Navy and things like that. And I remember she called me after, because I was hoping that when she had called me before to tell me that he wanted to meet with her and talk, that I was hoping, okay, like maybe she'll meet with him. He's sober. Like this is my daughter gets her dad, and this is maybe moving forward, maybe. And that was not the phone call I got. I got disappointed again. Another phone call. She called me the next day and tells me that he's still battling addiction, and he even had the audacity to tell her that is the child even really mine? And she's like, Hunt, get real, like this, she's yours. And he's like, I know, and I need to do the right thing. And I think deep down he's always known that he needed to do the right thing. And I think now that he has, guilt for that and not stepping up and doing the right thing, because he was in a dark place during that time as well.
But it makes it all the more extraordinary that he would then do this massive piece with the New Yorker, having had that conversation with your friend in which he knows he's the father.
Right.
So as a result of that piece, which is shocking to you, you have a DNA test ordered, and that's what happens.
Right.
And what's the period like where you're waiting for the results of this test to come back? Well,
we went to, the DNA test was a big deal to me, because you always hear these conspiracies about, people tampering with DNA evidence or anything like that, and that scared me. So I made it very clear to my attorney when, after I chose my attorney, I told him, well, the main thing I want at this point is for him to take accountability for his child. I don't care if he ever pays me $1 for child support. I want him to take accountability for this child, because she deserves a dad, and the truth is deserved upon everybody. So what was the question? I'm sorry.
About the DNA test.
Oh, okay. So the accountability was a big deal, which for the DNA test. So he actually, we found a place, my attorney, that the DNA test results would come back within like 5 hours, rather than take like days to come back. And we could go in, everybody do it, that day. And Hunter would pay for it as long as the results were, that she was his. So I didn't plan on bringing my checkbook to reimburse that. So we went through there, and they swabbed us. And, he did his segment separate from ours. And after we were swabbed, we were free to go, and the attorneys stayed there and they watched. They did not let the DNA samples out of their sight. And they watched every second of it. And within a few hours, my attorneys sent me a text message and they said the DNA test was not tampered with. And so, and we will call you as soon as we leave here. So, I knew the results. I knew that they didn't get tampered with. And that was, I think, the first time I was able to just breathe.
And how did Hunter react once he knew he was the father, for sure?
Well, during that time, there was no conversations between me and him still. It's my attorney and his attorney communicating. So his attorney had asked my attorney, which before the DNA test that day, I had asked my attorney to tell him, once the results come in, he has 7 days or a week to make things right, tell his family the truth and whatnot. And then we would file the motion that says that paternity had been established by scientific certainty. So, again, me and Hunter are not having communication. This is all through our attorneys. But after that, all we had heard was that he was willing to do single-parent adoption on my part and sign some form of NDA and things like that, I think, to, make it go away.
And were you happy with that?
No.
How did you feel?
No, because in my eyes, I don't feel like that was still taking accountability or responsibility for your child.
So how did things then resolve themselves?
At that point, I just had my attorney do his job. I said, no. I said, it's not fair. It's not fair to my daughter. I watch her, every day, and she's deserving of the world. She deserves the world, and he can take accountability and responsibility, and he can be a dad to her. And so my attorney said that he would take the reins from there, and he did. I don't think I had much to do with the legal stuff after that. I just let my attorney handle it.
So has Hunter ever met his daughter?
No, not in person. They've created a relationship, been building a relationship through Zoom, and Hunter was required to call once a month or something like that to Navy gets to pick out one of his paintings, and that's how they would start building a relationship. But Hunter went above and beyond to not only call her once a month, but once they started building a relationship, he's wanted to call weekly or sometimes a couple times a week just to talk to her. She goes into surgery. He wants to Zoom and talk to her, after. He's calling to check on her at different times and things like that. So he's gone above what the time frame was as far as what he was supposed to do. He has done that for her, which I appreciate tremendously.
She's now 5. Do you have plans for them to actually physically meet?
Yeah, I'm sure. Me and Hunter haven't worked the details out with that, but I mean, the world knows, Hunter has a lot on his plate right now, and so I think that needs to be his main focus, and getting through this time, and then the rest can come after. And Navy's well aware. She knows that her father's very busy right now, and he's got a lot of things going on, and she's waited 5 years. She can wait a couple more months.
I want to play you a clip. This was from President Biden and the First Lady, Jill Biden. This was from a speech in March last year. Listen to this.
Above all, I see a future for all of America, a future for my daughters, my 4 granddaughters. By the way, they're incredible. You should meet my family. Oh, you think I'm kidding? I'm not.
Do you remember watching that and how it made you feel that he seemed to have completely airbrushed your daughter, his other grandchild, out of that?
I'll be honest. I don't watch the news or things like that as much anymore as I used to try to stay in tune. But I don't watch that stuff as much anymore because I've started taking the political side more personal, kind of like that. No, I did not see that. there's been several articles sent to me that, people have told me that, he's not acknowledged Navy and things like that. But, that was during a time, I think, when was that taken?
That, I think, was in 2022. 2020, it was March last year,
Right.
actually, so just over a year ago.
Right, okay. That was, during a time that I think the paternity suit had happened and the child support thing had not yet, and Hunter and I had not come to terms with things yet. And the advice that, honestly, I've been given from my attorney was that, grandparents don't normally step into a child's life until their child does. The father, steps in first. And I think that, Joe has sat back and waited for that to happen for Hunter before he was, feels that comfortable enough to step forward.
Well, he made a statement to People magazine, both him and the First Lady, saying, "Our son Hunter and Navy's mother Lunden are working together to foster a relationship that's in the best interests of their daughter, preserving her privacy as much as possible going forward. This is not a political issue, it's a family matter. Jill and I only want what is best for all of our grandchildren, including Navy." How did that make you feel?
Happy for my daughter.
Right.
Anything like that, any, acknowledgement or just, a mother can't have enough people to love her daughter. And for the paternal side to step forward and acknowledge and, someday meet her and love her, that itself means the world to me.
Have you ever heard from either President Biden or the First Lady directly?
No.
Not a
No, I
phone
have
call
not.
or a letter or anything?
No.
Do you find that surprising?
No, I don't really. I feel like that's something that, they've waited for Hunter to step up before they step into.
Would you like the president, if he's watching this interview, what would you say to President Biden about potentially meeting Navy at some stage?
That door is always open. Always has been and always will be. I know that there's been a lot of toxic legal action that's been around Navy and litigation, and I feel like that door is open, and that toxic litigation is gone, and I hope never has to come back, and to be on the same playing field moving forward.
At the moment, she doesn't have the Biden surname. You wanted to give that
Correct.
to her, but you dropped a petition to try and achieve that. Why did you drop that petition?
Well, the petition itself in the beginning was because I wanted to feel like that was, their way in. Because I feel like some of the litigation did get toxic. And I wanted them to know that, I don't want to be at war. I thought that maybe, offering that would be a way for them to see that door was open. And, Hunter saw it as political warfare. But the day that Hunter and I sat down for the first time since I was pregnant, and we talked it over. We talked about, Navy and the good things that, we need to do and the bad things that we've, need to come from and fix and everything. And so we decided together that we will let Navy choose. When she's old enough, she gets to choose what her last name will be.
So she could end up being a Biden.
Mm-hmm. If that's what she chooses.
Would that make you happy?
But I'm sure that will depend on, the relationship moving forward.
Yeah, are you happy that you came into the Biden family in the way that you did, knowing now how it was all going to play out?
I'm sorry, happy I came into the Biden family?
Are you happy that you became associated with the Biden family in the way that you did, obviously through Hunter? Because obviously once you do that, your life's never the same again. If you had your time again, would you have preferred not to have ever met Hunter?
No, I think that my greatest blessing is my daughter, and without her, without Hunter, I wouldn't have her. So No, I mean, things didn't play out perfectly, but, it's not a perfect world, and things don't always play out perfectly. But however, Hunter gave me my daughter, and that's something that I can never take away from him. Without him, there would be no her.
He's now obviously on trial, accused of hiding his drug addiction to buy a gun. That was in 2018, the same year as Navy was born. What do you think of the allegations against him? Obviously, they're serious. He could end up going to prison.
I'll be completely honest. I don't know the extent or all of the charges being brought against him or anything like that. But I can say, yes, I know that he's going through a hard time, and I know that he's on trial, and I know just very little about the what-fors and whatnot. But I do know that no good mother would want to send their child's father to prison or want him to be there. So, I wish him the best through that trial. I hope for the best.
Is there any possibility of you appearing as a witness? It's been reported you may do.
Yes.
You will be appearing?
Yes.
Do you know when?
I don't know the exact date. I think it's sometime in June.
Does that worry you, or are you actually looking forward to being able to appear and say things on his behalf?
It's worrisome, always, in a situation like that. Of course, I worry that, you always worry you could say the wrong thing, or you feel like you're not helping, or you are helping one side, or whatever. But no, it's stressful, but like I said, I hope for the best.
It was obviously very complicated, his life at the time. Other witnesses will include Hallie Biden, Bo's widow. Hunter ended up having a relationship after his brother died with Hallie. And it would appear from the timeline that's been reported that was going on at the same time that you were seeing him too. Were you aware of that?
Yes. A lot of times during that time that were hard, or that were difficult, or actually just more difficult to explain.
It was incredibly shocking to be on the outside of that. You were kind of on the inside. You were caught up in that. Mm-hmm. Were you shocked? Were you angry? How did you feel about that?
About their relationship?
Yeah.
I was shocked, but I also know that, sometimes media can take things and make them more far-fetched than they are, and things like that. But I was there for Hunter during that time when everything was leaked to the media. Mm.
But you weren't angry with him for having that relationship at all? Many people thought it was very inappropriate.
No, I was not angry with him. Like I said, I've given Hunter a lot of grace, and Hunter was in a dark place during that time. And I saw that. And throughout the book, most people don't know me, but it describes my empathy for people. And I felt for Hunter. And I knew that he was going through a hard time.
You're incredibly supportive of him, even now. Many people will be quite struck by that, I think, watching this interview. You come across with great grace and dignity and strength. A lot of people would have been a lot less forgiving, I suspect, than you've been. How have you found it in your heart to be that forgiving?
When I had my daughter, I think that my love for her outweighs everything. And he's her father. And so that is somebody that I will give grace to the day that I die. That is somebody that I will support and wish the best for till the day that I die, because that is my child's father.
He's also facing, obviously, a tax fraud trial scheduled for later in the year. If at some stage he was to get imprisoned here and his father was still president, or indeed wins the next election, he would have the ability to potentially pardon him. Would you like him to do that, President Biden, if it came to it?
Well, it's kind of like I said before. I would not want my child's father to be in prison for her sake and his. But, as a mother, that's not something I would want my daughter to have to deal with. And It's not something I would want Hunter to have to go through. It's not something I would wish for him. So, I wouldn't want Hunter to be in prison.
So you would like his father to pardon him if he had the opportunity to do so?
Yeah, selfishly, yes. If that's an option, then, like I said, I wouldn't want my child's father to be in prison. I would hate to have to tell my child and have that conversation with her.
Do you still love him?
No, I care about Hunter, and I always will. I'll always care about Hunter because that's my child's father. But no, I look at him now. He's like a friend. You know, we've been through the worst together.
Yeah.
So moving forward, you know, I hope to have a good co-parenting relationship and a good friendship moving forward.
At some stage, I guess he will meet his daughter. At some stage, his father will meet his granddaughter. That's going to be a pretty amazing moment for everyone, for you, for Navy, for Hunter Biden, for Joe Biden, isn't it?
It is. I hope so. It's a redemption.
What did you know about Hunter's laptop, which is now the most famous laptop probably of all time?
I don't know much about the laptop. I've received books and things like that in the mail that I have not even read. Just because I know I've always been a pretty private person until now, and that's why, you know, I've called my book Out of the Shadows, because I've always been such a private person, and I can't imagine the things that are being said and being shown, like the pictures and things of Hunter on the news and everything. I can't imagine how he must feel having to see that, and quite frankly, I don't. I'd rather just, you know, not see it. That's why, you know, I try to stay away from the news, and I don't read those books, and I can't tell you much about the laptop.
Do you think he's a reformed character?
I'm sorry, what?
Do you think he's a reformed character, Hunter?
You mean like change-wise?
Yeah.
I think that Hunter has been through so much, and there's so much good in him, and he's been through so many bad things, and he's made bad choices, and I think that he is trying to get on the right path. Yes, I think that he's trying to come around and, you know, stand in his truth and make right what he's done.
Do you intend to vote in the election in November?
Probably. I assume I will.
And who are you planning to vote for?
I don't even know who's running. That's how much I watch the news.
Well, it's Joe Biden and Donald Trump. That's your choice.
Yeah. Do I have to say?
Yeah.
I think after reading the book, well, actually, I think reading the book, everybody will know who that choice is.
Could it be somebody else?
I think I make it, you know. Do what?
Could it be somebody else I haven't mentioned? I mean,
no, I'm just saying, like, reading the book, there's a story in there about the last election and taking, you know, my daughter to vote with me and things like that, because it was the first election since my daughter had been born, and her grandfather was running for president. And, you know, I talk about those things. And I think if you read the book, you'll know.
So you're going to vote Biden, aren't you?
You just have to read the book.
Spit it out, Lauren. I know you are, London. I know you are.
Well, Mr. Morgan, you'll have to read the book. After you read the book, you'll know for certain who I'll be voting for.
You could not look Hunter in the face if you voted Donald Trump. Be honest.
But have to read the book.
I can't wait to read it. You've been giving it enough plugs. You're now going to go on a big sort of promotional tour for this. Are you ready for that? Are you anxious about that? This is the first big interview you've done. How do you feel about getting out there and telling your story?
It's anxious, yes. Overwhelmed. But, you know, it's to a point where I've healed from so much, and I've gone through so many things over the last, 5 to 6 years that people don't know about. And I feel like I'm ready to tell my story. I'm confident in it. And at first, when all of this started happening, I received so much hate mail, and so many people. There were people sending me, emails and messages about how they'd hate to be on a plane with me because, like, the plane would go down. They expected me to suicide myself, and all these, like, horrible messages that I got. But now, the messages that I get are women who tell me, thank you for fighting for your child, and how it was an inspiration to them. And, I've put my worry and things like that aside. And technically, if my story can help some other woman in a predicament like that, then I want to tell it. I want it to be known. Even if one person can hear my story and it can change their life and help them through the darkest time of their life, then I will tell my story.
There were reports that you, for a while, were working in a strip club. Is that true? And is it true that Hunter came down there and saw you there?
All of that's in the book.
You can't keep teasing this as if you can't tell me honest answers. Come on.
I've given you plenty honest answers.
You have. Were you a stripper?
I don't know. You'll have to read it. It's in the book.
I don't really care either way. It's just an interesting question that's been in the papers, isn't it?
Very interesting, yeah. Maybe it'll sell copies, right?
Well, you know what, Lunden? I wish you all the best, actually. I think you've been... you were left on your own, and to think of you on your own, pregnant, back in Arkansas, feeling suicidal and wondering what the hell you were going to do with your life, I think you've got yourself back on track very well. Your daughter, I'm sure, will be incredibly grateful when she gets a little bit older and realises what you did for her. You've been very generous about Hunter Biden.
Thank you.
I've got to say, probably far more than many women might have been in that situation. You'd be very generous about his parents because, he's president of the United States, talks a lot about compassion and family. But the fact that Joe Biden has never actually bothered to pick a phone up to you or write to you or try and see you or your daughter, I find quite extraordinary, to be honest with you. So I admire your ability to not let that get to you.
Well, thank you. Thank you. That means a lot. And, the release date for the book is actually August 20th, and my daughter's birthday is August 28th. So the dedication is solely dedicated to my daughter. And I don't know what better birthday gift I can give her this year than her mother's story.
I think you're right. I think she will end up admiring her mother, like I do. So thank you very much indeed for joining me.
I hope so. Well, thank you so much. That means so much.
Can't wait to read this damn book now.
Good. I'm glad.
You should be a book saleswoman. There's your next job for you.
Maybe so. I'll look into that.
Would you like Joe Biden to read it?
I would. I would love for him to.
Lunden, thank you very much indeed. I appreciate it.
Thank you.